Welcome to the Braver Leaders podcast, the space where bold conversations meet real leadership. I'm Sam Harvey, founder of Braver Leaders, and I spend my days helping leaders and teams cut through the noise and focus on what actually matters, behavior change. On this podcast, I bring you unfiltered conversations with experts who are driving real change, executives, entrepreneurs, professors, coaches, and culture shakers. We dive into the human side of leadership, the stuff that truly makes a difference. High-performance teams, culture shifts, tough conversations, vulnerability, and impact. We're getting stuck in. If that's your thing, hit subscribe, share this with a fellow leader, and check out braverleaders.com for our free resources, because leadership is not a solo sport. Let's do this. All right, welcome back, team. And for this episode, I have got the wonderful Lynne McGarvey with me, who is the newly appointed head of HR at Warehouse Gyms in Dubai. Lynne has 20 years of leadership experience, so she's been around, she knows what she's up to, and 10 of those in HR. Most of her career has been in hospitality, and now in, all of your career in hospitality until now. Is that right, Lynne?
Yeah, until January this year, where I step
Nice.
out of hospitality. Still in the
Nice.
customer service area, but yeah, out of hospitality and into something new.
Amazing. And probably the most important thing that I forgot was definitely Scottish.
Yes, proudly Scottish.
Yeah, love that. Love that. Have I ever told you that I'm from the only Scottish settlement in New Zealand?
No, this is
Yeah,
new information to me. I can't believe we've not covered that already.
yeah. So I'm from a place called Dunedin, which is what they used to call Edinburgh Castle before it was Edinburgh Castle.
Do you have a tartan?
I do not.
Army tartan? We'll find you one.
I do have a statue of Robbie Burns in the centre of our town, so I don't know how Scottish that makes us, but yeah, our
Yeah,
rugby
very
team's called the
Scottish.
Highlanders, where there you go.
Very brave heart.
Yeah, exactly. So, thank you so much for joining, and I'd love to fill in any gaps if you can, just about your experience and kind of what you've done over the years, and then we'll dive into our topic.
Okay. So I'm a hotel school graduate from Strathclyde in Glasgow.
Nice.
I worked in probably mostly standalone food and beverage restaurants since graduation. My first job whilst I was studying was in a supermarket cafe, which is where I
Nice.
established that I liked working with the general public.
Yeah.
5 years working as graduation, then I came to Dubai, also in food and beverage service. I worked first of all actually at Waffy, a very famous bar called Carter's. I think it's now in McCafferty's, but it was one
Nice.
of the first bars in Dubai. So started there. I had the pleasure of working at Carluccio's in Dubai Mall with a fountain view. Probably one of
Wow.
my most favorite working locations. Probably most stressful job, but very. The location was phenomenal at the foot of the Burj Khalifa with the fountains.
Mm.
And then I moved on to work for Sushi Art for a bit, and that's when I realized I felt like a change, and I did my diploma in HR. And then I worked at Media One Hotel from there. I started off
Nice.
in HR. It was my first job in HR. Quite an interesting fact, the general manager, Mark Lee, he's still there at Media One. He was the
Wow.
gentleman that brought me to Dubai. So I've been in Dubai I always mix up, 14 years. So
Wow.
he hired me as the bar manager. So he was the one that gave me an opportunity in the HR L&D world. Started as a training manager, worked for a few years. Then when my boss left, I took on his role as a head of HR, and then obviously on to being the director of HR. So I was in there for 9 years. I had the
Wow.
pleasure of leading the team through the pandemic there. Not an easy time, but a time that probably very proud about. Then for the last year and a half, I worked at the Arts Club Dubai. One of the most, I'd like to say, the best private members club in the world. It's beautiful. I mean, you came to see me there
I
for a
did.
meeting. Absolutely. I mean, that's luxury for me. So
Yeah, it's
also
not bad.
another place that I was very proud to work
Mm.
as a head of HR. And then very recently in January, I took on the role as the head of HR for Warehouse Gym.
Mm.
We're here in the UAE. We currently have 13 gyms at the
Wow.
moment, with a big expansion plan for the coming years. So we've got 5 gyms in the pipeline this year, 5 more
Wow.
next year. And obviously the growth is one of the strategy for the business. So I was actually a member of the gym for 6 years
Nice.
before joining. So
Yeah.
also very proud to take on the role as the head of HR
Yeah.
at Warehouse Gym, because the gym is a special place for me. It's a
Yeah.
place that probably changed my life and probably my health. The day that I stepped in the first time through the doors of Warehouse Gym.
Love
So
it.
yeah, it's great. So 1 month in, not that
Nice.
I'm counting,
Yeah,
one
yeah,
month
nice.
down, and yeah, work to do, but very happy currently.
Awesome. And I love that. And I think hearing your kind of story, and I think the topic we want to cover off today is creating L&D programs which actually make an impact.
Yeah,
And I recorded another podcast this morning with a mentor of mine, a lady named Louise Mara, and talking about the fact that leadership development, training, that kind of thing. We've got a lot of there's a big industry where people are kind of going, okay, great, here's all the tools, but I'm not looking at how they show up well. To actually
yeah,
do real work to create proper impact, and so that I really like this continuation of this discussion almost to go, okay, how do we actually make an impact? Because I think there's so much that doesn't, right, and so much big ticket items which are not creating impact. And so I want to be a bit provocative and say, what can we do as the leadership development providers to be better? And you've got
yeah,
such a unique perspective on that, having developed yourself through that
yeah,
trajectory, but also developed a lot of other people along the way, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I think the first point I want to touch on is what you said, self-learning.
Yeah, nice.
I think a lot of people, not expect, this is where we're going to be provocative, maybe a little bit controversial. People sometimes expect learning to come to them. And I don't want to give away my age, but when I was at university, I had to go to the library to get books, to get information. And I'm not that old. But today, like wow, like
Yeah.
today, learning is at everybody's fingertips, right?
Mm.
Whether you're using ChatGPT, I'll be very honest. I speak to ChatGPT like it's my friend. I'll ask it questions. I'll ask it questions about work. I will ask it questions about life, food, the gym, whatever
Mm.
it is that's related to my learning. You have podcasts for free.
Mm. Mm.
There's free learning out there. So I think I like to always hold people accountable for their own self-learning as well.
Mm.
Outside of what you give them in the business, I think that's where the magic happens for me.
Yeah.
Whether it's books, and everyone has a different style of learning. I've got millions of books, and I would like to tell you that I probably didn't read many from page to page. I like to dip in and out, but I do listen to podcasts, and I like to listen to audiobooks when I'm walking.
Mm.
So there's a lot of self-learning out there available to people, and people should take advantage of that if they want to grow.
Yeah, definitely. And I think maybe there's even a precursory step to this. It's just kind of coming to me as we're speaking is understanding your learning style.
Yeah,
So you've touched on that you like audiobooks and podcasts, right? And I hate
yeah,
that when I'm walking. Like I need to be in nature. That's my kind of,
yeah,
as much nature as you can get in the UAE. Like I'll go and walk in a park, right? And kind of get
yeah,
my central nervous system regulated a little bit. But and I'm like you in that I'll dip in and out of books or read articles. If I've got okay, I'm reading Game of Thrones at the moment. I'm reading that cover to cover. But like if it's learning, I will dip in and out and kind of go, okay, that's an interesting fact. I'll take that. How do I apply it? That's my learning style. So what's yours and how did you discover that?
so I like to connect learning styles to personality styles.
Yeah,
Um,
nice.
I use everything disc a lot. That's my favorite. I had some training on that. So
Yep.
I always refer it to that. So I'm a red blue, and I know that
Yep.
there's different colors and different ones, but in everything disc, I'm a red blue, which is for people. My people is off the chart, which is good for HR.
Yep.
And my enthusiasm and engagement levels are high,
Nice.
usually quite noisy, probably the loud one. But the blue part's my more reserved, caring, empathetic side, probably for the HR.
Mm.
I need learning to be fun and engaging.
Mm.
If you want to connect with me and teach me, you have to make sure that your content is good, and it's relevant to
Mm.
me. If it's not relevant to me, I'm very, very quickly going to lose my concentration.
Mm.
And that's me. I know that's me. I'd like to take you back to a point that someone shared with me recently, so I'd like to share it with you. Obviously, adapting to different learning types is very important because everyone is different, like we've just touched on. But at the moment, I think now or in the very near future, there's going to be 5 different generations working together.
Yeah.
So, and that's like for the first time ever, like 5 generations, because obviously a younger workforce coming in, people are working longer, unfortunately. But those generations working together, their learning is going to be, their style is going to be very different. So you have to take into account the generational differences, but also the personality differences. So for me, it has to be engaging, it has to be fun. I think if you're going to bring a trainer in to do it, they must be good. They have
Yes.
to be able to connect with people.
Yeah.
That's very important for me. And also has to be relevant to me and the business goals. I think it's really important. You
Mm.
know, so I don't like to waste time. I think most people, especially when you get to a certain part of your career and you're busy, if you're going to invite me to a training, it needs to be relevant to my current
Yeah.
goals,
Yeah.
both personally and professionally in the workplace. And I
Yeah.
think for the team at any level or any person, you have to identify what's in it for them at a very early stage
Yes.
to make sure that they connect and say, right, I'm in, and you have to get the buy-in, regardless of the style. You know, I think that's important to note.
Yeah. That's super interesting, especially the 5 generations. So that would be the boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, and Gen Alpha. Is that right?
I think there was one. I think there's one before that. I don't think they've included the alpha yet. Like, we need to check it out. We'll chat
Yeah.
GPT it later when we're
Yeah.
learning.
Well, well, that's ChatGPT. Okay, and so if we've got this breadth of what will be learning styles, learning abilities because of or kind of focus abilities, I think will be an interesting part in that. How do you go about canvassing the people that you have? Because you've had big teams, haven't you?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't. How many were at the Arts Club? Is it? I think I remember you saying 300
over
odd. Is that right?
300.
Yeah.
Over 300. We have over, I think, around 360 at the moment in Warehouse Gym. And if we're going to open 5 gyms, when we open 5 gyms this year, that'll exceed the 400 plus mark.
Yeah.
Media one was the same, over 300 at some point. So, yeah,
So
big team.
how do you approach those that extreme breadth of personalities, generations to kind of canvas what it is like? Where do you start? I guess is what I'm sort of saying.
I think you have to look first of all at, what learning do you need to do? So where are the gaps? What's the learning that needs to be done
Mm,
currently, and in the near future. I think you always need a blended approach to learning anyway. So
mm,
obviously online learning, mobile learning is massive.
mm,
So people can be learning at their fingertips, which is good, but you
mm,
still need a blended approach. You need the classroom model where there's someone face to face. You need the
mm,
online, and everybody will find their way, of what they enjoy. You're not going to you can't do a specific training for every single person, but you can teach that person how to self-learn as well.
mm,
So that
mm,
you're going to have the onboarding orientation that's going to be in the classroom. Now, for someone that like me, it might not be my most favorite style, unless the trainer is really good.
yeah.
So, but I still have to attend, right? But then that's important, I guess. Your leadership team is important in this
Mm,
process.
yes.
HR's biggest challenge is sometimes, most often, getting the buy-in from the leaders. So you have to get the buy-in from the leaders from the very start of your journey,
Yeah.
whether you're new or if you're introducing something new. What's in it for them and what's in it for us as a business? Could be something as simple, if at the Warehouse Gym at the moment, we're obviously in year one of this expansion. So it's like we're going through a bit of a change at the moment. So for me, year one, obviously we have to look at current SOPs, current operating systems. What are we doing? Do we have to change it? But one of the
Mm,
things we're looking at is consistency. So we're doing
mm,
customer service training, for example, for the team, customer service training, sales training.
mm,
So we need the buy-in, from the leaders to make it work. That means
mm,
releasing people for the training for time. But if I was to tell them what's in it for them, so
mm,
if and this is an example, if if you release these guys for training and they're well trained, the member satisfaction will go up.
Yes.
Obviously, the team's commission will go up, so they'll be happier. And as the members renew, it means that we will hit our revenue. And that's just one example of, you have to always tell people what's in it for them, what's in it for me, what's in it for you, what's in it for us as a business. And I think if you do that well, you will get the buy-in from the people. And if you have the buy-in, it becomes a culture. And when you have that culture, it should become easier.
Yeah, it's so you essentially need to sell up and down, don't you?
Yeah.
So it's, here's why it's going to benefit the business, and here are the metrics that are going to improve, and therefore the money we will either make or save. And
Yeah.
then person who's taking the training, here's what's going to change for you and how it's going to benefit you.
Yeah. And if you're a top salesperson, apart from your revenue, there's also career growth from training.
Yeah.
You know, so you get growth if you're good at your job and you attend these trainings and you develop your skills and yourself. Then, you know, hopefully as we grow this business, that you will get an opportunity to grow yourself and your career. I think that's very important for people, especially the younger generation. Growth is very important to them, like more than ever. I see, you know, I get a lot of conversations, and I feel like, and it's people's right to want to grow, and I support that. It's just about us setting the expectations for people. You know, hey, like, do you think 3 months you've been here 3 months, do you think it's a suitable time to be promoted, or would you like to let me help you put that journey together and give realistic expectations to them?
Yeah, for sure. It's okay, great. And I think I want to pull back a bit and ask you something, like, to reflect, because this is about, okay, so we have to sell up and we have to sell down. But what have been the programs or the trainings that you've been on that have left the biggest impact on you, and why?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything this guy mentioned already, because as HR, it's related to personalities.
Yes.
I love the psychology element of HR.
Mm. Yeah.
So I mean, I did that training, I think around maybe more than 10 years ago now. And it's still the one I go to. It's still the one I refer to. I share it with everybody that I have a chance to meet. I was actually thinking today, when I go to the office later, I'm going to ask the team to do there's a little, you can do it obviously outside with the full form, but there's also, they give you the tools to be able to conduct it, you know, quite easily. I could ask them to do one little assessment, and I could probably identify the personality style. The reason for that having such a big impact on me, it taught me a lot personally about how to work with others. Usually when challenges come with people working with one another, there's usually no ill intention. You know, 99% of the time, people don't have the intention to upset one another. Genuinely, I believe that. I think it's about if you can understand different types of people and say, oh, okay, hang on, this is a green person. Okay, so I'm going to interact. Like, I think Mark Lee's a perfect example. He was off the charts green, and he won't mind me to say this. He is a task-orientated gentleman. And we actually learned, I mean, we worked together for a long time, and we actually learned to adapt to one another. Because when I sat down, you know, in the end, in my last, you know, few months at Media One, and we sat down to have our weekly meeting, it was very different from the first weekly one-on-one that we had. I had my list, because I knew that he didn't have time for the chit chat and the conversation, because that's like a green person. So I would have my list ready to, you know, to fire at him, and he would be like, hey, so how was the weekend? Or how's your week been? Because he was making his effort because green people will lightly sit down and say, hey, have you done this? And then they're the ones that will say, oh, sorry, I mean, good morning. You know, and the red people would be the people that are offended that they didn't say good morning, because they never took the time to say good morning. So I think that's been my biggest, it's still my most favorite. I still analyze. Obviously now I'm new in my job, but it came to my mind. I'm like, I wonder what so and so is, and wonder what style they are, because I will work hard to make sure that we work well together. The success of the business depends on, you know, us understanding and being able to work well together. So that's probably I'd say that's definitely one of my most favorite trainings that I've done.
Okay, interesting. And so kind of linking that to then thinking about okay, we've got to sell up and sell down. We've got to ask people what it is that they want and learn their learning styles. Then, really we want to leave them feeling something, don't we? That's kind of the from the work we've done. Like I got some feedback yesterday from a program we've been running in Dubai. The one of the CEOs that we were working with said, look, your program gave us everything that leadership programs give in terms of tools, but what it left us was connected and feeling something different. I've
Yeah,
never had that before, right? And
yeah,
so I think that's the big thing for us, is that we will always try and leave people with a feeling of connectedness and kind of camaraderie, or a feeling something different in a program.
yeah,
And for me,
yeah.
that creates impact. But I'm intrigued okay, so you've canvassed, let's look back along your illustrious career and go, okay, so you've created some cracking programs, I bet. Which ones had the biggest impact on those around you?
I mean, we implemented everything disc at Media One, for
Yep.
example. We
Yep.
actually used to have a poster at the top of the stairs onto the mezzanine floor that reminded us where, as a leadership team, we were on this chart.
Nice. Yeah,
The
nice.
reason we put it there was exactly for that, to remind everybody every
Mm,
day um, of which styles we were working with, and to
mm,
remember those styles and the reasons why someone behaves in a certain way, or
mm,
responds in a certain way. So we implemented that, and obviously we then filtered it down. We also used to do the assessment with everybody as they joined. So it was a training that everyone done
mm,
at that time, and because it also helps the team to understand the customer as well. So it's not just about us working with leaders; it was about us understanding the customer. But I want to take you back a little bit, because I think important thing that because before I came on this call, obviously you shared a few questions with me, and then I was ready. But
mm,
you've just hit the nail on the head. Um, yes, there's the skills training, and you can learn many things. You can do your customer service training, and you can do, your selling training. But the most important thing I believe today is like cultural
mm.
intelligence, and emotional intelligence.
Yes.
That would be my two. And it's what you said. It's not just about turning up at a training. The training is probably not the content. It's not the content in the training that you're doing. It's the connection of the team. That's. I mean, your content's probably great. Obviously, I mean, your content's definitely great, I'm sure. But it's that feeling, right? That vibe of everyone being together and
Yeah.
learning together and
Yeah.
connecting. So,
Mm.
is it the training? Or is it the environment? So that's quite a can of worms that we might have just opened.
No, I think it's such a good one, right? Because I think that so many L&D people miss that, right? And I think you're absolutely right. Like, the content is important, but there's a really good stat in coaching, actually in therapy too, in that the relationship is worth more than 50% of the success, or
Okay.
contributes more than 50% to the success of the coaching, therapy, mentoring, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So if we look at that and apply that broadly to this, then in reality, how you set it up and the way you are in the training is actually worth more than the stuff you do. And I think
Yeah.
the tools and techniques are worth like 15% or something like that. So in reality, there's what they're given way too much airtime, aren't they? And that we're
Yeah.
like, hey, I've got this cool tool that I'm going to teach everyone. So we now spend far more time. Yeah, we say, here's a tool you can take and use in your workplace. But the point of it is to connect you all and get you to know more about each other. And I
Yeah.
think that's what DISC that you found is the underlying thing there for you, is that it's awareness of those
Yeah.
around you and yourself, right?
And most importantly, myself. The
Yeah.
self-awareness was probably the biggest learning. Because what I used to say to everybody, and I still say to this day, if I'm dealing with challenges or
Mm.
someone comes to me for advice, I'm like, you cannot change anybody
Yeah.
but yourself. And you don't have to change yourself, you just have to adapt to others.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't change other people. That's the
No.
reality. And the quicker that you realize that, the quicker your life will become much better.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. If you I mean, I've done a lot of changing in my life, and it was all through a realization of I don't want to be that way anymore.
Yeah.
And nobody else told me. It was me just going, I don't want to be like that, right? And so raising awareness is always, and my lecturers will be proud to hear me say this, raising awareness is the precursory step to any behavior change.
Yeah. And can I tell you also what's really important that I reflect a lot often
Mhm.
is, especially as a head of HR, where we work as a leadership team, appointing other leaders, interviewing, selecting, promoting. Those leadership people are,
Mm.
any leader has such an important job. And that could be a leader, you can be a leader in the workplace, you can be a leader in life. We always joke that the eldest in the family is the leader, right? Like the head of the family. Like you're in charge almost. Even your parents get removed and you're the oldest. But leadership comes like not only in the workplace, right?
Yes.
It's the way that you act outside of the workplace. Are
Yeah.
you the person who holds the door for someone? Are you the person who smiles at I pass the cleaner every day. I always feel bad because he's mopping the floor as I'm leaving. And we have
Mm.
this interaction where I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm stepping on your floor. Good morning. There's people that don't even acknowledge. When I go to my office, there's a lady there helping people to get through the gates, and many people don't even say hi to her,
Yeah.
or say good morning. So I feel like those leaders that we put in those roles is actually the most critical thing that we can do as a senior team in a business, making sure those people are the right person um, at every level. It's not just about skill for me.
Yeah.
You could be the most knowledgeable person in the world about your job, but which type of leader are you?
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah.
important.
You're preaching to the converted, and I I will often say leadership is a personality trait, not a job description. And
Yeah,
it's if you and leaders push for change through their actions, and managers just manage complexity. Well, I shouldn't say just manage complexity. Managers manage complexity, and that's a tough job, right?
yeah,
But they're not the same thing.
no,
And we use the terms leader and manager interchangeably, and we shouldn't, in my opinion,
yeah,
right? Like
I agree.
leadership training is about raising awareness, um, getting people to understand what it is they want to change, and then saying, okay, let's design something that helps you do that, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and so that's coming back to your fairly weighty task of helping 300 odd people develop. That's a pretty it's a big ask, isn't it, of actually creating that awareness in people to then go, okay, so what is it that I need to do? Then kind of looking at a broad, okay, well then there are groups of people that need this and this and this, and then applying it. Is that right?
yeah. You just have to, I mean, yeah, the first time, I mean, I guess the technical term is to do a skills gap analysis, or,
Yeah,
that's probably the
yeah,
correct way.
yeah.
Where's the gaps in the
Mm,
business? What do we need to do to get there?
yes.
Um, there can be a potential to feel overwhelmed sometimes, with the amount of work that you feel that you might have to do.
Mm,
Um, and I think my advice in those scenarios is to take the big wins. So, right, what are our KPIs? What are our goals as a business? At
mm,
this time, what's the priority? Okay, here's what I would like to do now, and here's what I'd like to do in the future. That's what we're currently doing at Warehouse Gym. We've got our plan in place, and we've prioritized tasks, not just with regards to L&D, across all channels in the
yeah,
business. And we're just working through them one by one. Obviously, many at the same time. But yeah, you just look at the gaps, and then, because obviously there is the financial element. So when I go along to my friends in finance, chat the door,
mm, mm,
because we're the ones spending money as HR, right?
mm,
So I just as long as I know in my heart that it's the right thing, then I can articulate that, to obviously get the funds to do if it's something that's financial to get
yeah,
that money. But in my role, it's important to me to make sure that it's the right tools, or it's gonna
yes.
have the bigger impact on the people. and the business, because that's HR. Any leader, it's people and the business, and it's all together.
Yeah, nice. And so I'd like to address the elephant in the room, which is how do we measure this? Because it's the magic question in coaching and leadership and all of that sort of thing, right? And I have an opinion on it, but I'd love to hear what you do, because in reality, you're only as good as what you can prove, really, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the ROI on any kind of training is always, you're right, it's difficult to prove on paper. But if you look at a good way to measure is maybe through your KPIs. So whether it's revenue, if you did a training on, sales, and your revenue increases, because your team are better, so they're selling memberships more easily. In the case of Warehouse Gym, they're given the skills to be able to sell for the benefit, obviously, for the member. They make more money. We achieve the targets. So that's probably one very simple example. You could also look at employee engagement satisfaction. So if you run an employee engagement survey, you can look at the scores from there, because typically you would have some questions about learning or company culture. So I think you'll see the examples in there. Maybe the level, the number of promotions, internal moves, transfers, employee turnover itself. Are people staying because they're being promoted, so you're not losing them? That's just some examples that would come to my mind. I mean, listen, obviously, revenue is a big one. Was it additional revenue? But also the cost of turnover, for example, in a business, especially in this region. I mean, it's huge. Sometimes people say, "Oh, it's the cost of the visa." It's way more than the visa. And hospitality's got typically high turnover worldwide, not just here. I sometimes wonder if the visa here makes it less than what it would be if there was no visa. Would people just leave quicker because they don't have to worry about a visa? So anyway, that's another podcast, I would say. So those are just, the cost. It's not just about revenue. You have to think about the cost of your happy team, or an unhappy team as such, or the cost of people leaving and new people joining. That can be expensive. And also you should be able to visibly see the learning as well, right? So obviously that's not something you can take to finance, to say that I just saw Sam in the desk and he was excellent. You should be able to observe behaviors due to your training. So as the team walk around, you should see a change.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you can actually take that to finance, right? And get finance to go and see it, because it's tangible, isn't it? And like actually observe these behaviors. And I mean, you'll be no stranger to this, but putting it through into performance reviews or performance appraisals, where you're going, okay, hey, look, you've actually demonstrated this, and I've gone and asked people, and they've said, yeah, you do, right? And that's that for me is a key way to sort of show that impact, isn't it? It's like because it is hard to on the daily measure a behavior, but then if you go and ask people and say, what have you noticed, rather than has this changed? Because if people say, has it changed, it's a yes or no, whereas what have you noticed? I've noticed this. Oh, great, that's what we were hoping for.
The other thing I didn't mention was obviously customer satisfaction, right?
100%. Yeah.
In our scenario, it's membership renewals. Are the members renewing? I think that's one of the key measures. Do you do mystery shoppers, for example? Are the scores improving? There's many ways. I'd like to just say that I've been very fortunate with my finance team for a very long time, actually, in all of my last few jobs. I think the finance role is also changing. The finance and HR were very much one team, actually. I'm not sure many people would like that thought, but we're definitely our jobs overlap massively, and it's important for me that relationship is good, and I've been very, very lucky in the last 10 to 12 years. I don't recall actually having a challenging finance, to be honest. I've been very lucky.
Well, I mean, yeah, you're fairly approachable, Lynn. You like your chat, so I can't imagine everyone having too much of an issue with you, right?
I'm
So
persuasive. Maybe I'm persuasive.
true. Okay, so um, well, I want to get your kind of your top bits of advice. But before we do that, like, how do we create this kind of continuous learning for in organizations?
I think again, let's talk about the leadership. It
Yeah.
has to start from them ultimately, as well as HR. But if you look at the leaders, are they always learning? Are they
Mm,
self-learning? Is it a culture of learning? Um, are people sharing information?
mm,
Um, like Kevin, our MD, he shared recently like some statistics on fitness and
mm,
what's happening in the industry. So then I read that report,
mm.
and it gave me some insight. I personally share links to podcasts that I think can benefit. So I think that's important. I think obviously as a company prioritizing learning as part of the business, whether it's financially being allowed to say, right, we're going to implement an LMS or some mobile
Yes.
learning. I think it's important. I think the performance review process as
Yeah.
well
Yeah.
needs to be solid in this scenario. But yeah, I think it needs to be, everybody has to buy in um, to the
Mm.
learning and development of the people.
Yes.
And everybody, like including those people, have to buy in. Everybody has to buy in. So I think the most important thing is to make sure that your learning's aligned with your goals and your KPIs
Mm.
for the business and obviously for the people. So personally and personal level and obviously professional level in the business. I'm not really sure if I answered that question, but
No, I think you did very well. Thank you. I think I mean, it's a multifaceted approach, isn't it? You need buy-in.
yeah,
You need to make sure that people's awareness is raised on what actually it is that needs to improve, but it needs to be aligned with goals. And you
yeah,
need to make sure that the people who, I mean, this is one of the strongest predictors of behavior, right? That if other people are doing it, you will do it too.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and that needs to start at the top.
There's a very cool video. I'll show you the link. It's called the Lone Nut. I think it's from Glastonbury, maybe,
Oh, the
where
guy
it shows.
dancing?
Yeah, he's dancing.
Yeah.
Yeah, have you seen it? I
Yeah,
shared that
yeah,
with the
totally.
team recently. I share it
Yeah.
often, but you're right. It's the power of behavior, right?
Yeah.
And that's culture. That's
Yes.
company culture.
Mm.
And I think if you've got a good company culture, the rest is it's easy. And like you say, it just takes one lone nut to make a change
Yeah.
for the better. I'm happy for that to be me.
Yeah, I was
Um,
going to say, are you the lone nut at Warehouse Gyms?
Probably. I mean, there's a few where I mean we're all in our different areas, but yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, definitely, yeah,
awesome.
absolutely.
Love
I
that.
want to make change, for the better for the business, and of course, as a head of HR, I want to look after the people. That's my
Yeah.
number one job.
And that is why you and I strike a chord because you're there to create change. That's what we're here for, right?
Yeah,
Okay, and that is leadership, in my opinion, is we
yeah,
push for change, right? Because it's not easy. You have to be able to say, no, that's not right. And I've learned that a lot along the way of kind of, it's only going to be effective if I say no and I don't agree.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, that's, I think, really important point.
yeah. It's an important role. As I said already, leaders. If you're a leader, it's a lot of responsibility. So you
Yeah.
have to make sure that you're ready to do it and commit to doing it well.
Yeah, nice. Well, Lynn, look, lovely to have you on. Thank you so much for giving up some of your day to come and speak to us. And I think love to, yeah. Where can people find you? On the gym floor at a warehouse gym? Where else?
It depends what time it is. At 6 a.m. they can find me, yeah, definitely on the gym floor. But yeah, listen, I'm around the gyms at the moment. We're currently moving head office to Media City, so
Nice,
I'll be back at Media One for hopefully some food and drinks in the garden. We're going to be
nice,
neighbours again, so
nice.
almost going back home. I was there for so long.
Yeah,
But yeah, you can find me. I mean, I'm in between the office on the gym floor. I like to be with the people. I don't sit very well at a desk, Sam,
yeah. No,
for very
fair.
long. I'm sure
Yeah,
you can figure that out.
yeah. I can.
But yeah,
And you're on
people can
LinkedIn.
connect with me on LinkedIn. I think the
Yeah,
best place to connect with me is on LinkedIn. It's where I'm most active, probably from a professional perspective.
Amazing. Well, look, thank you again for sharing your wisdom with us. Really appreciated your thoughts,
Yeah.
and I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me. Let's catch
Of
up
course.
soon. All
Sounds
right,
good.
see you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Braver Leaders podcast. If this conversation sparks something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a fellow leader who needs to hear it. If you haven't yet, hit subscribe so you never miss an episode, and check out our free resources as well on braverleaders.com, because great leadership starts with action. We'll see you next time.